Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website is clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. You can also follow the pod on Facebook and Twitter at 30spod. That's at the number 3 zeros and pod. Jumping into the NBA action because the NFL is on a bit of a 2-week stretch bye week here as we get ramped up for the Super Bowl. Don't worry, we're going to talk about that, but we're going to move that on to the back burner because we got such a long time until the actual game that I don't want to overload anybody with just redundant Super Bowl trivial talk and banter, but we will get into some stuff that's happened because the league was not quiet in the lead up to the waiting, the bye week, the rest up period, whatever you want to call it, before we actually get into Super Bowl week. So starting off with the NBA, the first thing that we have to talk about is something I've been kind of avoiding for the past few episodes actually, is the cancellation of games. COVID has run amok through the NBA. And honestly, it's not unexpected. I talked about this when the season was actually getting back going. For the NBA to have gone through what they went through with the entire bubble down in Orlando, and then to come back without any type of measurement to keep things contained, be it a bubble or simply regional play where you just have teams playing against other teams in their general area, there seems to be a severe lack of communication. I understand that it was the players who did not want to do that same setup. It's the same thing that happened in baseball, and they got through it. And they'll get through this. It just seems like to go from everything that they went through and have it work so successfully to then come out with nothing is like the ultimate case of the pendulum swinging back the other direction. Instead of finding that happy medium, they went, because I get it. 3 months in a bubble was probably the most torturous thing for the guys, especially guys with families. Wouldn't imagine they want to do that for a regular season or an actual full regular season. I get that. But there has to be, like I said, travel schedule. I know they're doing a lot more of 2 games in a row. I get that. I know that they've done some things with scheduling. It just seems like that was asking for trouble. And so, at last count, there was 23 games or so, 25, I believe, something like that have been canceled. The most games that have been postponed, rather. The Wizards, the Grizzlies, both tied with 6. Then you have the Celtics and the Suns coming in with 3. 23 of 30 teams have had at least 1 game postponed. Now, we saw this in the NFL, who went about things without any type of protocol in place in terms of containment, other than making sure that guys were passing their tests and stuff like that, which is tier 1. That's basic level. Did you wash your hands type level of stuff. I don't know what we expect. And we just hit the quarter mark of the NBA season, and you've already lost 23 games. 23 games. So you've lost a quarter of a season's worth of games in terms of for one franchise, obviously not for an entire league, for one franchise, and you're only a quarter of the way through. You haven't even, if you were to quantify this as one team, they wouldn't even have played yet. That's not a good look, and it does not foretell of good things in the future. Just to not act like there's going to be, or to act like there's not going to be some kind of repercussions to go about this with no type of protocol in place, with no serious measures to contain it. Again, I'm not saying you go back to a bubble, but you have to have some kind of extra, be it play. There was a lot of these games were due to a lack of players available, not necessarily because they were worried about people catching it. They just weren't enough bodies to put on the floor. You've got to do something about that. This was hastily brought about, as you can imagine, with this quick turnaround to begin the season after finishing so late last year. This is for a league that typically handles things very well. They've had a few hiccups, notably the China incident, but this one as well in terms of just the execution and, again, having been such a bright example of how to go about this if you were going to be as strict as possible, right? The most strict with I think some kind of it's just as strict because you had to be down there all the time, otherwise you were messed up. So that was strict, but they showed you how to do it. And again, they just went completely oppo. We talked about this with coaching hires on the last episode. Going to oppo can definitely backfire on you, and I think the NBA is kind of seeing that now. Again, they did put some measures in place, but clearly it doesn't look like enough was done. You could say that's good that they got through this without, more games being lost. You could say that it's no big deal at all, whatever the case may be. All I'm telling you is, if you could quantify this as there was literally enough games for an entire franchise to not have played yet this season, that's a problem. Oh, and then some. And then some. So, yeah, that's not a good look. Again, does not bode well for the rest of the regular season, trying to get all these games in. But, as they say, whatever. Moving on, the Philadelphia 76ers took down the Los Angeles Lakers the other night on a last-minute heroic shot by Tobias Harris, my boy Coworld. But that wasn't the big story. Now, it was a big story. But the big story out of this game was Joel Embiid taking a foul from LeBron James near the basket, in which LeBron pushed him while he was in midair. Embiid fell hard on his back, was writhing around in pain. Ultimately, I believe he is to be okay, but Embiid's dealt with back issues his whole career. He's dealt with a lot of issues his whole career, but he's got back among them. And the uproar is the fact that LeBron was not ejected from the game. Embiid took to the podium to say as much, that had he been the one to commit the foul, that he easily would have been kicked out of the game and it wouldn't have been a question about it. I agree. I don't know how you could say otherwise, because he pushed him in midair. Like, this is a flagrant 2, easily call, and this was a veteran no call in terms of LeBron. I don't know how much you could say that he intended to hurt him. I don't think he intended to hurt him. So that's probably why they just stuck with the flagrant 1. But in that position that Embiid was in, again, he's in midair, flight, no contact with the ground whatsoever, full extension from the arm. I'm not sure what other possible outcome there could have been in that situation, and that is what would have led me to assessing it as a flagrant 2. Again, I'm not a referee, so probably some kind of guideline preventing that. But I totally understand why there's some dispute here, some upset people over the lack of a harsher penalty on LeBron. And I definitely hear Embiid when he says if he'd have pulled it on LeBron, he'd have been ejected, because, damn it, if that ain't the truth, I'm not sure what else is. Now, back to this Tobias Harris shot. Shanae Gumake of Go Look at Gumake on ESPN today was speaking about a prediction she made, or an assertion she made rather, after that victory, that this was a momentum building win for the 76ers, something they can carry with them late into the season, hopefully into a playoff run, and a deep playoff run at that. And I thought about Tobias Harris and hitting that shot, and about how much the conversation around him last season was how he was overpaid. And then I think about the fact that you got a Ben Simmons, a guy who is, I don't want to say averse to scoring, but he damn sure seems allergic to it. And I thought about the fact that Tobias Harris, as again, a player who I like, one of my top guys. He is probably my my Josh Smith of this generation, right? To have a guy like that, who is a walking bucket, paired with Ben Simmons, should be a perfect match. So, and this is probably more harking back to something that I talked about way back when, about my thoughts on Brett Brown. It seems to me more of an issue of just not finding a way to get all these pieces to work. The one that is obviously concerned is the big one, Embiid and Simmons, because of the lack of outside shooting that Simmons provides to open things up for Embiid, and Embiid's sheer dominance means that you can't not use him properly, right? You'd be a fool not to. But there still seems to be a lack of, or there seemed to be, maybe Doc is finding that out now as they're rolling. But it seems to be that there's some kind of a lack of a proper plan on how to use those two. to keep the floor back. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I watch all Philadelphia 76ers games. That would be a complete total lie. I just know that Tobias Harris is a much better player than what we saw last season when he was trying to carry the load in the playoffs, especially scoring wise, and probably extended beyond his capabilities in terms of trying to be a playmaker and do other things on the floor. If he's able to just be contained or limited, whatever, in the scope of being a scorer and being that bucket getter, he could do stuff like what he did the other night routinely. If Ben Simmons is able to consistently just have to be a table setter for him and Embiid, this team can make that deep playoff run. That's what stood out to me the most after that shot. And then hearing Shanae Ogumake say what she said on the radio. It can be over the Lakers, a team who the defending champions. Let's quit playing. Defending champs, you can say what you want about the validity of that championship, but they won it. Nobody else won it. The Sixers didn't even make it to get a chance to. They didn't even meet it. They didn't even see it. Hadn't even seen it. It definitely can be a momentum. We'll see. Obviously, there's again just a quarter mark. So much time to go. So many injuries to be had because they're coming. But yeah, that definitely can be a momentum builder, and it definitely is a reminder of what Tobias Harris is. The bucket getter. That's what he is. Don't look at him outside of that scope. Just understand and respect. You can look at the salary. Salary been paid. Whatever. I've always felt like we do too much hand wringing over a salary. First of all, it's not your money. Stop counting other people's pockets. The guy spending it, you didn't spend it, and they're not spending it on you. You don't need to worry about it. But on top of that, I think we forget that just because the person doesn't do all the stuff we think somebody who makes that amount should do, doesn't mean they don't do something really well or better than somebody else to the point where that's why they get it. I think he might be a poster child for that, because I really do like his game and what he brings to the table. But I do know that he has his limitations as a player, and at least in what you want him to do for an extended period of time. Other Eastern Conference news: the Brooklyn Nets are reportedly in the market for a big man. Their interior defense has been woeful. DeAndre Jordan, who Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving caped for, has not been the defender that anyone needs. I mean, anyone. And we talk about a lot of teams who could use some interior protection, and he just ain't it. It's gone. But as you expect, with the player whose game was based largely on his athleticism. And so the rumored name is DeAndre Jordan of the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers have about 11 big men, all of them veterans, and that team is young and probably not ready to win anything. Like, not even probably, like they're not ready to win anything. So those big men are more than likely in search of a better home, a chance to compete for a championship, a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs at the very least. You put DeAndre Jordan, who would join the Brooklyn Nets following a reported buyout that is supposed inevitability at this point. You put him with Kevin Durant, who is, forget my prediction of him winning, comeback player of the year. He's in the running for MVP, which is probably why LeBron is trying to make his case a little bit stronger for MVP. We'll talk about that next episode. The battle for MVP, LBJ versus KD. Ooh, that might have to be a Clocker Sports article too. We'll see. Might have to parse that one out and then stretch it, because that's a good topic. I think these two guys are consciously. I know LeBron knows that KD is getting some MVP love, and so I also know that probably means that KD knows, LeBron knows. So this is cerebral. We're not even talking about just two basketball. We're talking about two guys who are very aware of their image, and more so the image as basketball players, like specifically in that they want to be known as the best, and they're going to go out there and put on a show to try to secure that. We know LeBron was a little bit salty about his MVP positioning from last year, and like I said, I predicted KD to win or to have some comeback player love, which they don't do. But we could see this man win MVP. on a team that could go from not worse, but bottom rung playoff team to finals, Eastern Finals representative. That's my pick. That's who I got coming out of the East. KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. Come on, now why wouldn't you pick that? I don't know who else you're picking. They stay healthy. I don't know who is beating that team in 7. We could talk about them not being enough defense, which I thought wrong. The thing about defense is you only have to play so much when you can outscore everybody. Now, they struggled. There's been some ups and downs, especially when Kyrie came back. But again, we're just at the quarter mark of the season. Check back at the All-Star break. Let's see what's going on then. We got problems then there's some deeper issues. And there's going to be some problems. We know chemistry is a big issue in the first year. Anytime one of these super teams comes together. We saw it with the Clippers last year. We saw it with the Lakers the year before. That was injuries more than anything. But we've seen it. We see it every time. Saw it with LeBron's Heat when he first went down to Miami. You're going to see it probably with this Brooklyn Nets team. Except, here's the thing. There's nobody else in the East that's even close to as talented as they are. There's some better teams right now. That's why I said let's check where they are at the All-Star break. That'll be a much better indicator of if they actually have the chops to make pose a serious threat to the Lakers, because it's the Lakers. It's going to be the Lakers. Clippers, I like what the Clippers have done this offseason, and maybe I think they'll make it to the finals this season, the Western Conference Finals. But I don't know. Lakers got better too. Hopefully we get what we deserve, and that's that all LA Western Conference, and we'll get a Brooklyn. Who do you want to see in the East? Boston, and it has to be Boston. I don't know if I want to see Milwaukee again. I'm kind of tired of seeing the one-trick pony. Milwaukee gets dashed out pretty easily. I would love to see Brooklyn versus Boston and see and fully healthy Boston, and see how all that works out. That'd be great. Switching gears over to the NFL, like I said, we have to touch on a few things. You got Super Bowl coming up, and it's being billed, and I know you've seen the meme floating around on social media, as Yoda versus Grogu, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Yoda, obviously, Star Wars love here. Yoda is the old wise creature. I'm not even sure what the species. I'm not. Admittedly, I am not a Star Wars buff here, right? But I'm aware. I'm conscious of the events that take place. I know the characters. I am just not gonna. You're not gonna get me some. You're not gonna get no deep dive knowledge. All right, we're not getting into the weeds on this. Grogu, obviously, the lovable character from The Mandalorian, and if you didn't know that by now, I'm sorry that you've been living under a rock for the past year. Here's the thing about this one, though. I, for the longest, was really excited about seeing a Patrick Mahomes, because I assumed it would be the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers Super Bowl. I thought the league wanted that. I thought we were going to get that with the way the Packers were playing. But then when they matched up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after the Buccaneers got past the Saints, right? And that was a problem too. Going to that game, we talked about that being a challenge to take down a team 3 times in 1 year. And the Saints found that out. And so when it became the Bucs and the Packers, I immediately thought, oh, well, here's where the Packers are going to have an issue, because that consolidated offense, there's some contributors are all around. You got the Tonyans, you got the Marquez Valdes-Scantlings, but that offense is Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. It's a 3-headed monster, and if you can disrupt that, then you have the recipe for success, because there's not much they could do. And then you throw in the decision making of the head coach and the quarterback, your Hall of Fame quarterback, not scrambling. Now listen, he's not picking up a first down or scoring a touchdown, but he can get you 3-4 and slide down and make for an easier play. I'm not sure that played into Matt LaFleur's decision to kick the field goal. It shouldn't have. Neither one was great, but the coach, knowing who his quarterback is and not drawing up his best play on that 4th down for the season, and then getting up on the podium and saying, hey, that's how, basically, you win some, you lose some attitude. That wouldn't sit well with me. Now, I say this as a disgruntled Bears fan, so I don't got much room to talk. I'm just telling you. Perception is everything, and it didn't look good. Then you got Rodgers coming out saying he doesn't know what his future holds. He backtracked a little bit, saying that no one knows, pretty much, what the future is. But then he opened it back up, saying that, or he said that he plans on being in Green Bay because the season that he had is in the third. But then he opened it back up, saying that nobody knows what the future is again. And it almost felt like he was putting the onus on the Packers that if they move him, that's on them. Because you got the reports that he wants a new deal. No one knows what that necessarily means. We'll see. So once the poster child's out, now you got the original, like the actual poster child for the NFL and Tom Brady versus the next one. Like the Yoda versus Grogu is such an appropriate comparison, just in that it is the Spider-Man GIF, but like a passing of the torch version. Not necessarily pointing them out for being the same and redundant, but pointing to each other like, hey, this is a cool moment, and it's been likened to seeing Michael Jordan play LeBron James, and that's a good one too. But I don't think it's the same because we're seeing in Mahomes the talent married with the mind, with the coaching of an Andy Reid, who offensively rivals a Bill Belichick defensively. At the least, I would imagine that's what people say, right? I mean, Bill has the wins, but Andy's got the reputation and the tenure and the track record. And so I don't know if you could say that comparison because I don't think we've ever seen LeBron with that. And without knowing what Mahomes' talent would be, now I think he's tremendous talent anyway because we've seen this offense of Reed's fall short several times prior to this. I just don't know where the level of talent is outside of having all these skill position players that are dangerously fast. So I have to be honest here and just say I like it. It's a good one. I'm not sure if it's apples to apples, but I definitely like the fact that we are getting the chance to see the last great, right? The last best in the game take on the next best in the game, and seriously, like for better or worse, a passing of the torch. Now Brady said he's planning on playing the 45s a couple more years. What's fun? Time out. Let's talk about the Brady 45 thing for a second, because remember when he first said it, he was like 39, 40. He was 40. And everyone's like, man, there's no way you're playing 5 more years, man. Come on, Tom. You're not playing. Tom Brady, now granted, he played like dog crap the second half of the championship game, but he was having a lower level MVP type, some worthy of garnering some votes type season for the Bucs this year. Got them to the playoffs, right? So we're now just 2 years away from him actually reaching the goal of playing the 45. It seemed impossible to even fathom while he was talking about his avocado ice cream and how come he doesn't eat strawberries. Like, it's wild. But anyway, back to the story. What Brady has done, right? You saw the other thing, another comparison to LeBron. And this is why I didn't want to lead with this, because there's so much trivial matter, so much rhetoric around this, that it's a lot to sort through before you actually get to the meat of anything, any actual gameplay. The Brady and LeBron comparisons are funny because you also see it literally the other way around, where Rodgers was LeBron and Brady was Jordan. But now that it's the championship, and it's the Super Bowl rather, it's a reverse, or it's flipped, and Brady is now LeBron or Brady is now Jordan to LeBron, to Mahomes is LeBron. But Brady is now LeBron in that he went to another team and still won. The rhetoric is going to be so thick that I can't. I'm getting sidetracked here. Anyway, we thought Brady was done, but he's got an MVP season with 2 years out from his goal. You got Patrick Mahomes, who in just his 4th year is already well on his way to being the best ever. And so while I thought that this was the Super Bowl or the Chiefs Packers was what the NFL wanted, damn it if this wasn't it all along. Because you get, again, your previous golden boy with your new golden boy in the biggest game of the year. And oh, by the way, it'll be a home game for the first time for one of the participants. And guess who did that? Your original goal. Just a little nod, a little nudge, to the next guy. Hey, look what I did. That's insane. It's insane to think about what Brady's done. It's insane to think about how fast Mahomes has gotten to the point that he's gotten to. The rhetoric is going to be thick. The comparisons are always fun because you're going to see flip-flops just to make the point, no matter who is what. It's always beneficial, whatever it is. But just remember that what you're seeing here is a passing of the torch. Even though Brady's going to play for his 2 more years, even though there's a good chance they meet again next year with all the weapons that are down there in Tampa, they got to figure some things out. But they got the money, I believe, and the talent that's up there in Kansas City. You're gonna. This is the pass. This is it. This is the passing of the torch. You don't get these kind of moments that often in sports, if ever. And the NFL, it's perfect that it's happening in the NFL because of how condensed the season is by nature. Just because, right? Fewest games, shortest amount of time, shortest career spans, and you get to witness veritable passing of the torch in real time. Brady's not walking away. I would not expect him to walk away after this game. However, this is the moment where you can officially say, if you haven't already, this is the passing, especially for a Super Bowl. That's Brady's game. 10 Super Bowls. That's his game. You beat him for the Super Bowl. It's kind of how Nick Foles ascended to the lore that he had, right? Except for Mahomes will probably actually have earned it. I digress. Little bitter Bear fan resentment there. But yeah, this game is going to be tremendous, and I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more starting next episode. So, moving on though around the rest of the league, Deshaun Watson has reportedly officially requested a trade. Now, this was breaking news today, but even in the release or in the reports, it was stated that he actually made this request a couple of weeks ago. The big report here was that the new hiring of David Culley to be the head coach does not change that at all, and one would imagine it wouldn't. Not to disrespect David Culley, long-time veteran of the NFL, 30 years of experience, but there's no way in hell, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm going to watch you trade away all our assets for a first-round pick that's still leading the league or close to the top of the league in penalties. You're not going to trade my number one target for a running back who's been hurt, right, for the past 3 years. By the way, on the way out, he's the head coach at the time slandered the guy who was a pillar of the community and did okay. Then you tell me, now here's the thing. Reports were that he was upset that he was not included in the search for the general manager, which ended up being Nick Casario of the Patriots. And people were taking that as some diva stuff. And I thought to myself, that's funny, because I don't think, and it said, so I don't think I know, that he wasn't looking for his final say. He just wanted to be involved in the process, which, is kind of what a franchise quarterback would want to be anyway. The issue, though, comes in really in that supposedly this is what he was promised, and it was not delivered upon. That's where you have an issue, and that's where the trust erodes, and you're not going to get that back with the David Culley, despite his long-time reputation and his work with RG3 and Lamar Jackson. It's not going to get it done. The wise thing for the Texans would be to move him now, rebuild, because you got to rebuild it anyway, because that roster's trash. You were trash last year. You're going to be trash for a few. Get a king's ransom, ransack another team, build it from the ground up, and however you want it to look, because your image is already hit. You already pulled the Houston curse off and have the superstar wanting to get out. break clean, man. Don't drag this out. It seems like two sides want to get it done, but ownership, Cal McNair, is keeping it from happening. Don't do that. The longer you play this out, and I was on last episode saying that the longer it plays out, it's still for the best, and ultimately, I think I still believe that. But what I didn't factor in was a possible raising of the temperature by either side, because by either Deshaun saying what he having this come out, or by ownership kind of standing firm and shouting out their resistance to doing so, which they've done. This can push both sides to actually getting something or trying to force the hand of the other, and that's where you start seeing these packages for the Jets, the Dolphins, which oddly enough he wants to go to the Jets. And it got to the point where you're not even seeing the Bears involved, and not even necessarily directly, but as a third party, in which they'd end up getting a Tua Tagovailoa. This from Bill Barnwell, I believe. This is a situation that anybody could have seen coming, and there aren't many paths out. The only way for Houston, not even to save face, but to just get themselves back into good graces, is to make this right by him. You move him, get what you can get everything that you want, and just start the rebuild. Don't hold on. Don't try to, because you've messed up every step of the way. So really, you're just one mess up from undoing any good deed that you could do from now until you mess up again, because you will mess up again, because it's in your nature. It's in your nature. I speak all this stuff about the difficulties going on there, and there's quarterback moves going on all around the NFL. You got Matthew Stafford on agreeing to part ways mutually with the Detroit Lions. Reports are that he could end up in San Fran or Indianapolis. Carson Wentz is not going to stay. You got who else on the move? We don't know what's going to happen with Dak still. Now, the Stafford news is funny because it's brought up a lot of conversation of him going to Texas, down there in Dallas, playing for Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, which would free up Dak Prescott. And here's the thing. While I love the talks of going out and getting Deshaun Watson, if the Bears are able to find a way to get Dak Prescott on the free agent market, I will drive to O'Hare myself and pick him up. Dak Prescott, if you recall, was an MVP candidate himself last season before he got injured, playing behind with a crap defense on the other side. You also have a possibility of a Derek Carr being available. Matt Ryan. Now, we're clearly going down the ladder here in terms of interest, but they're available. And I wrote about this for Last Run on Pro Football. The problem is for the Bears, as it was announced by Jay Glazer of Fox Sports, that they were going to be major or big players in the quarterback market. The problem with that is for the Bears, being big players has often been a double-edged sword where, yes, Ryan Pace, 9 times out of 10 is going to get his guy. The problem is 9 times out of 10 that guy's going to either be a dud or he's going to overpay for him. Look what happened with Trubisky. Look what happened with Nick Foles. Hell, look what happened with Mike Glennon. Even though he got out of that deal after a year, he signed into it in the first place. It's not a good look. So I'm nervous about the fact they're going to be dipping in. They gave him the free reign. I clearly have given him another year at least on his contract to line up with his head coach. We'll see where it goes, but I'm not overly excited about the fact that it's been announced they're going to be big players, and I've seen seeing how he's attacked that in the recent past, like the very recent past. We might have a return of the diva wide receiver. Vikings rookie Justin Jefferson is out talking. He and DK Metcalf both released their top 5 wide receivers. They were both either 2 or 3 on their list. Top was Julio Jones. DK had himself second, I believe. First of all, let me say both of them disrespect my boy DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's the best, but they had him at like 4th and 5th or 3rd and 5th, something like that. Horrible lists. But Justin Jefferson took it a step further and has actually been talking beyond that. I don't want to say calling out, but specifically naming A.J. Brown, saying A.J. didn't have nearly as many yards as I had my first year. While Brown quit back, he's a fan, no lie. He said, I'm a fan, no lie. You're doing great. 1,400 yards is great. But you getting like 10 targets a game. Give me 10 targets. And I stopped and I thought about it like, I like this from Jefferson. He is oblivious of the situation, unnecessarily capping at a receiver. For maybe there's a lead up to this. I didn't see it. It's just a standalone quote floating around on social media, which means that it's completely harmless, right? That's totally how it happened. Context be damned. But even still, I love it. It's not detrimental. He's not trash talking to a defense about to get his head cleaned off, dance on the logo to the point where then he's got to come back and apologize a week later and say he's going to stop doing it for the betterment of the team, blah, blah, blah. I love it. Friendly competition. Spice it up a little bit, man. I love it. Also, A.J. Brown is right. Because if A.J. Brown was getting 10 targets a game, he'd be killing too. He probably would have had 1,600 yards and like 20 touchdowns. But Justin Jefferson cold. I got a front row seat to it. 2 games. Killer. Very good. Very talented. A.J. Brown is also. And I think he would do well to remember that. But again, it don't matter. It's defense or it's offense. They're not playing each other. That was a good one. I love it. Bring back the diva wide receiver. Bring back the good fun diva wide receiver where it's just yapping because he thinks he's the best. It's not yapping for stupid stuff. It's good. Love it. I love it. Oh, that's a good one. That one, yeah. 10 targets a game. Also, I'll also say this, and I'll end it at this. Jefferson is lucky he came in when he did with the Vikings because a couple of years ago, and even if they had their if it went ideally for them this past year, he wouldn't have been getting no 10 targets a game. Just putting that out there. Just wanted to make sure that we are completely clear because it sounds as though you're hating, but it's not necessarily that he wouldn't demand them. It's just that the Vikings, we all know, are a run first team by design. That or that's what they want to be. It hasn't always worked out that way, But they definitely have always wanted it to be that way. So I just thought that it was all. That's funny. I love it. I love that. Keep talking, Rook. Young man, he's not a rookie anymore, I guess, right? Or I think you're still technically a rookie until the next season. Something along those lines. We'll see. But the quarterback carousel is something I'm keeping an eye on. And more trash talk from these receivers, man. Keep it up. And also just build up to the Super Bowl. Get ready for some stupid trivia. You're going to get some dumb facts that you don't care about. And you're going to hear them like everywhere like it's brand new. I might break one. You never know. Anything's possible. That's going to do it for this episode of Triple Zeros. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshieBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com, email address, clockersports@gmail.com. You can also follow the pod at 30 Pod on Facebook and Twitter. That's the number 3 zeros and pod. Be sure to read the stuff. Last Run Pro Football just did the double-edged sword. Being big players, a double-edged sword for Chicago Bears. We'll have one for Pippen and Easy coming out that is focusing on the big men in the Chicago Bulls stock watch with Wendell Carter going out, Daniel Gafford having to step up. What's that going to look like and what does that mean for both players going forward? And then also, like I said earlier, the one for Clocker Sports that probably will be coming out because I like the concept here of the KD LeBron MVP battle that is unfolding before your very eyes. So be on the lookout for all that, or go check that one out, the last word that already dropped as well. So until the very next time, I think you already know what it is, man. That right there is the sound of the horns.